So if you're watching this, it's very possible that you have a calling to be a plant medicine facilitator, also known as a guide, a practitioner, or a shaman. I personally don't use the word shaman because as a non-Indigenous being, I have a lot of reverence for that title, and I prefer to call myself just an ayahuasquera or a wachumera to honor the medicines that I carry and not get involved in cultural appropriation. So if you are like me and you are light-skinned and you feel called to this, I highly recommend you consider that too. But how to answer the calling of becoming a guide or a facilitator? Well, you're partly doing that just by watching this video. I think one of the hardest parts of answering the calling is first admitting that we have it. It took me 2.5 years of working with ayahuasca before I finally would admit, even to myself, that I really wanted to learn this tradition, that it was like the joy of my life to consider that I could do this work. But I didn't give myself permission to admit that for a long time, and I know a lot of other people who have gone through the same, of feeling like they're not worthy, or it's not possible for them, or what do we know about being a shamanic guide? We might not know a whole lot, but if we have a calling in our heart and we feel there's an invitation, it is so powerful just to name that and accept it and honor it. So that's a huge step. Beyond that, there's a couple of ways that we can go about doing it. The process that I did is I sat with a bunch of different people who were facilitators of ayahuasca. And I like to say I kissed a few frogs, and then I met the man that would become my teacher, and I knew it immediately when I sat with him. It's like, this is the one that I want to learn from. And I had to wait a bit before he acknowledged that he wanted to take me on as an apprentice, and that was okay. The apprenticeship that I agreed to was a minimum of 7 years, which is very much like going through a process of becoming a doctor, going to med school. It is a very intense, very demanding, very rewarding and amazing process. So I went the old school way of being an apprentice to someone who I wanted to emulate, that I deeply wanted to learn from. It doesn't have to be that way though. There are ways to learn from multiple teachers, as an example, to sit with lots of different people, to absolutely do, especially in the space of ayahuasca, to do a lot of master plant diets, to work with a lot of different plant allies, because ultimately we're learning from the plants. Not so much human beings, but plants. They're more direct to the source of knowledge, right? But it is okay, of course, to learn from each other, but just acknowledging that no teacher knows it all. No teacher is perfect. We all have our shadows. So, you can go the route of working with lots of different people and mentors. Maybe you've got a teacher that's teaching you a specific branch of shamanic traditions and another that's teaching you plant medicines. And, it's okay to mix and match. But it's, I think, imperative to do master plant diets, to work deeply with the consciousness of the plants. And it is also imperative to take your time. This is not a rush, and this process is not learned in an online course. It's learned through experience, sitting, for me personally, thousands of times. I worked in the space of ayahuasca learning for 10 years before I poured a single cup of medicine. And that is not uncommon. I sat with somebody once who had been apprenticing for 25 years, and he still wasn't pouring medicine because it didn't feel right in his own integrity yet. And man, do I honor that commitment to just being honest with ourselves. So take your time. When we rush it, we become dangerous to the people that sit with us, and there are countless stories on the internet right now of unsafe spaces, even from well-meaning, kind and compassionate individuals. Experience equates to safety and know-how, not good intentions. So take your time, and whether you work with one person or a dozen, do your work with the plants, learn in all the spaces that you can, and trust yourself when you feel the invitation from the medicines that you want to work with, that it is time. Go slow there too. Don't start pouring for 30 people, pour for 1, then maybe 3. Just let yourself slowly evolve into this, because that is the way we do it, out of integrity and with a respect to the potency of the medicines, the traditions. And speaking of which, I highly recommend you have at least one old, ancient, wise, wisdom-filled tradition of the medicine that you wish to carry, that you have as a foundation. It's not that you have to do it exactly the way a tribe like the Shipibo Kanibo that I studied with have done it, but to at least have an awareness of how the work has been done for thousands of years, so that you're showing respect to those who have come before you and you have a foundation from which to build from. So that's my advice. I wholly support any of you who have the calling to do this, because we need as many heart-led, honest, experienced facilitators in this space as we can get, because it's growing like crazy and it's a wild world. So please answer the calling, but do so in a very grounded, thoughtful, discernment-filled, and honest way. Drop comments, questions, if there's anything I can address specifically, and I really appreciate your support. I'll see you next time. Make sure to follow and subscribe to our channel. Much love.